Order, please rise for the entrance of His Worship Mayor Michael Fougere.
Good evening, everybody. We'll begin the meeting with a prayer. We beseech the Lord to bestow wisdom upon members of this council in order that their decisions may be founded in justice and prudence. Amen. Please be seated. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our council meeting. And Councilor Bryce.
Thank you. I'll move the agenda with the following. I'd like to table all of the items up to and including CP 14-16.
As well as the additions to the...
And the two additions of the delegations, 14-95 and 14-96, please.
Thank you, Councilor Bryce. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Councilor Murray, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Just for those watching tonight, what we've done is this is a council meeting for one item. We've moved our regularly scheduled council meeting on Monday night to Thursday night, and the motion to defer the information is simply to have that meeting happen on Thursday. Thank you for that. Now, the minutes from the meeting of November 3rd. I have a motion for that, please. Councilor Hawkins, seconder. Okay. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we have one item before us. This is a CM 14-17, and we have two delegations. The first one is Mr. John Hopkins. You come forward, please. You have 5 minutes for your presentation. If you could identify yourself, who you represent. There may be questions from council after.
It is now. Good evening, Your Worship, members of Regina City Council. My name is John Hopkins, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Regina District Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today to respectfully request that members of Regina City Council support the recommendations contained in the Regina Civic Employee Superannuation and Benefit Plan. I would like to begin my comments by commending both sides for getting us here today. Over the past number of years, we have been very concerned about this issue and its impact not only to taxpayers through a number of taxing authorities, but also to pensioners under the plan, as well as the multitude of staff involved in the plan. Your Worship, our support is based on a number of factors, not least of which is the resolution of the governance issue. While the report addresses a number of poignant points, we would argue that the resolution of the governance structure is paramount to the overall success of the plan over the long term. In addition, we are pleased to see a resolution related to the pre-implementation deficit split, as well as strategies on how to deal with surpluses and deficits. Moreover, we are happy to see that the expected average combined contribution rate is 20.7% as compared to 35.2% identified in the report, which clearly was not affordable nor sustainable. Your Worship, I believe it is important for everyone to clearly understand what would happen if this historical agreement is not reached. One, taxpayers, both provincially and locally, would need to almost immediately fund well over $100 million. 2, deferral of much-needed infrastructure. 3, the plan's pensioners would be hard hit. 4, the City of Regina's credit rating would most likely be further impacted. And last but not least, the entire issue would be in the hands of the courts for years, to say nothing of the instability it would create for everyone involved. The proposed agreement, if approved, provides a resolution that will mitigate the challenges I just spoke of, in part by utilizing a 20-year amortization period to deal with the pre-implementation deficit, by setting out what appears to be a clear mechanism to deal with future deficits and surpluses, and to come back to it again, a governance structure that will end deadlocks. Your Worship, this agreement was long and protracted. It appeared to many of us on the outside as though it would never be resolved. However, at the end of the day, an agreement has been reached. Once again, I would like to commend the parties who worked at resolving this very important issue. I would also like to respectfully request that Regina City Council support this, not only that Regina City Council support this agreement, but also the Superintendent of Pensions. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. If I can, I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Are there any questions of the delegation? Councilor O'Donnell.
Thanks. Good evening.
I'm going to start with a statement, get you to respond to it if you don't mind.
Okay.
It would not be common in other jurisdictions, Canada, to have the Chamber of Commerce come forward and support an agreement such as this. Would you agree with that or not? There's a setup question, I realize. but-
Yeah, it's kind
Big
of
setup. Go ahead.
I think that's probably fair. But let me add to that and say that the reason that why we're supporting this today is when you look at the cost of not supporting this, the impact of not supporting it is far greater than supporting it. So I think what happened is the parties got together, worked out an agreement that I think is fair and equitable to everybody. And I think it's something that we've needed in this city for a number of years now to get straight, and I'm happy to see that this has been worked out.
Thank you, Worship. I'll carry on, and I appreciate you're here, appreciate your response. One of the first things you said was about contribution rates. Can I get you to comment based on, say, new employees or younger employees and what that contribution rate means that seems to be established here versus what could have been?
Well, it's funny you should ask me that question. I know a number of people that work under this plan that have young families. And they complained to me and said, listen, it's very difficult. I'd rather have that money for my kids today as opposed to paying in for something that's going to be, 30 years away from now? Mm-hmm. So I think that this really does have a positive impact for those employees.
Thank you. Last question, Your Worship. What's the message that you think Council would send if we agree to this?
I think it's a very strong message to everyone involved, to all stakeholders. As well, I would venture to say to the community, I think this is a very positive thing for the entire community that we can resolve this issue. It appears like for once and for all in terms of having the structures in place that we'll need in the future if we so need them. There's a number of very, very important things that have happened in this agreement, as I understand it, both give and take, and I think it's very, very positive.
May I suggest, if I could, just follow up? Can I throw a couple words at you, a couple phrases? Stability and long-term?
I've seen those in the report, and I agree with that. Long-term stability, yes.
Thanks very much. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor O'Donnell. Other questions of the delegation? Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. You can return to the gallery.
Thank you.
And we'll move to our final delegation tonight, Mr. Kirby Benning. Mr. Bennings, for the record, if you could identify who you represent. You as well have 5 minutes for your presentation, and there may be questions after.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My name is Kirby Benning. I'm the chair of the Civic Pension and Benefits Committee, and I represent the 21 different employee groups and was the spokesperson at the bargaining table. I appear before you this evening to urge you support of the administration's recommendations. The Memorandum of Understanding that you would be endorsing represents the culmination of hard work on both sides to reach a reasonable conclusion to the challenges facing the plan. The Memorandum of Understanding incorporates the previous letter of intent and builds on that work to fully address all concerns raised by the superintendent. I would highlight that the results of implementation of this agreement will be cutting of costs by 25%, ensuring the contribution rates don't go too high, and enabling temporary benefit reductions when necessary to achieve that objective. Providing for the retirement security inherent in a defined benefit plan while providing the flexibility necessary to contain contributions. Creating a more efficient governance model that includes a timely dispute resolution process. Given the commitment by both sides to find a resolution that is a negotiated settlement, given that this agreement has achieved the necessary objectives and resolved the issues laid out by the Superintendent of Pensions, and given that this agreement is signed and endorsed by both sides of the bargaining table, I ask that Council now support this agreement. I am willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Benning, for your presentation. Other questions of the delegation? Councilor O'Donnell.
Thanks. Good evening. It's nice to have you here, especially under these circumstances.
It's a pleasure to be here under these circumstances.
Well, good. We're all in agreement. So let's. I'll have some questions for you, but I want to begin with this one. So, from your point of view, if Council agrees to this tonight, what happens next from your point of view, and for what you have to do, please?
Council's endorsement of this is a necessary and essential step in having all parties buy into this agreement and this solution to the plan. We know that the superintendent will be looking to see and hear from all the interested parties on what they feel about this solution, and that will definitely influence what they have to say. And so this is one of the steps. I look forward to presenting this to the committee on Wednesday and getting their support, as well as it being one of the steps in this process as well.
Thanks very much. So I noticed in the report, and I'm not sure everybody has read this, so some of my questions may refer there, and I just want to give you a chance to elaborate. But you've asked for an extension to deal with the superintendent putting the process together, or the application together. Could you comment on that, please?
Well, as you're likely aware, this memorandum was finally finished in a very long session. 14 hours we spent at the table Thursday night in order to be able to get it here before you guys today. We got all the principles agreed to, and all that framework that was the main meat and potatoes of it, but there's a lot of details that we need to, in order to have something refined for the superintendent to see as the complete document. And so just getting those details and legalese hammered out into good language is a necessary step for us to ask for a short extension. Like I said, we have the principles that are in the memorandum of understanding. It's just working that into another document is what we're looking at.
Appreciate that. Thank you. You also, a note in what we're being considered is that the application, or sorry, the implementation would be June the 15th, which is different than what was kind of suggested before. Kind of get you to comment on that and the importance of that date.
It's actually July 1st, 2015,
Yeah,
halfway through the year. And this had more to do with the administration, the department that handles the pensions, and how quick they could get the mechanisms in place to smoothly answer questions that prospective retirees have coming into their office, and to just keep that mechanism flowing very, very quickly and easily for them. And so they asked for that date. Both sides were willing to do it sooner, but we pushed the date off strictly for the administration process.
Perfect. A couple of, I think, hopefully simple questions. Based on your understanding of the agreement and your support for the agreement, would it be such that if somebody is already retired and living in this plan, that they are protected and looked after?
It is. These plans, and we talk about cuts and we talk about changes, but these are on a go-forward basis. This is anyone who's working now or works into the future for the service they earn after July 1st, 2015. That is the service we're talking about changing in the plan. Nothing in this agreement affects retirees. Nothing. There will be no reduction to the benefits that retirees earn. There will be no reduction to anyone who retires within the next few years what they earn. It will only be people who retire a few years down the way, and it'll be on that small piece of service, and it'll obviously grow as people have had longer service past the July 1st, 2015, but no service before 2015 is affected.
Thank you for that. I think that's an important piece to communicate. Second point, and I asked Mr. Hopkins this, I will ask you the same. Based on the contribution rates that could come in here, would you suggest, or would you agree with me that probably makes it a lot easier to not only retain staff but also to acquire staff?
I heard that was an objective from the employers at the table, and I think that reflects somewhat in the cost-sharing arrangement that we had to try and achieve all the objectives that each of us had. I think it will. This plan's implementation does see a reduction for employees, which would take effect July 1st, 2015. So I would hope that now that we have these issues worked out, that having a good, secure, defined benefit plan that is a little more cost-effective will be something that the employers will be able to sell to prospective employees.
My last question to you is a little bit about communications. So again, I don't want to assume, but if I can assume that council agrees and that your membership agrees, is there going to be a joint communication with staff, or how will that be done from your point of view?
Obviously, there's been a lot of work happened since Thursday, and unfortunately, we haven't finalized that. We have, obviously, had to correct some misunderstandings similar to the questions you've raised with me tonight from retirees, and so there's definitely a need to have a face-to-face likely with everyone who's interested, and so we may have a town hall meeting again, and obviously this time we would invite both sides to participate so that we can send that message out together.
I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Donnell. Are there other questions of the delegation? I have one question for you, a hypothetical question right now because it's in the future. This council will be deciding on the report before us, which is the future of the plan. Your committee meets, I believe, on Wednesday. Can you speak to your thoughts on this passing on Wednesday?
I would be very, very surprised if it didn't pass. I've had the only communications I've had from my committee members is congratulations and them happy to see that it has reached a conclusion. Nothing negative, and we did share that early Friday morning, similar to the time you would have seen the documents. We had shared them with our committee, and like I said, haven't heard anything negative at all. So I believe it will be passed.
Thank you, Mr. Benning, very much for your leadership. There will be more said about that in a moment, but thank you for your leadership. Thank you. If I could have a seconder, I'll move concurrence in report CM 14-17.
I'll second that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
And this is regards to the Civic Employees Superannuation and Pension Plan. Attached as Appendix A is a memorandum of understanding which we are being asked to approve in principle so that the legal work can be done between now and December 5th, which is the expected deadline for this to be submitted to the superintendent pensions. So I have a couple of comments to make. I know members of council will speak as well. And I'd like to close debate as well, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Christmas has come early this year. I think many people in this community will be very, very pleased to know we've dealt with an issue that's probably one of the most important issues this council has faced and the succeeding councils in the past years. Its impact on not just the City of Regina staff, but the 5 employer groups and the 21 unions. This is significant. This is absolutely huge. With this report, will form the basis of a joint submission to the superintendent for review, and we believe we'll get an answer by December 31st of this year, and hopefully we'll have approval of that. But I do want to begin by saying thanks to some people, and I want to begin by thanking our city staff and the employers' staff who led the negotiating team on behalf of the employers. And that's Mr. Brian Reary, who's our solicitor, Jim McClellan, Curtis Smith, Bob Waller, and Glenn Davies. And on the employee side, Kirby Benning and his team. This group is a significant leader in our community. And we had many ups and downs. We know what's been happening for several years about having to bring a sustainable pension plan. And I think that what we now have is certainty into the future. And that's what I think the pension is looking for. And as I look into the gallery, I see many retirees here and others who are interested and very concerned, and that is a good thing because it shows there's interest here. Throughout this discussion, you heard it with the delegation, you'll hear it again, but those who work to build our city, those who are retiring, will see no change in their benefits at all. That was paramount for all sides. Those who are current employees will see a sustained pension and hopefully no talk of a change of a different pension plan in the future. And taxpayers are also protected because the inference being, Mr. Chair, should this fund be wound down and pensioners and move to a different plan, employees to another plan, there will be significant hardship with taxpayers. This avoids that. This is a good day for our city. It's a good day for the pensioners, for employees, for city staff. So I want to commend those who did such hard work here. We're talking about almost 7,000 people in this plan, 4,000 working today, and the rest about 2,900 who are retirees who are affected by this. So we know that the letter of intent that we looked at a couple of years ago wasn't quite enough to get us where we needed to go. And it's not easy to change the governance of this plan, which I think, to my view, is central to the change and updating of this and modernization of this plan. The double veto is gone. We have a simple 7 on each side. In the event of a need for deadlock, we have a 15th person that will be appointed. That's fantastic. The funding model deals with deficits in the future and surpluses in the future in a way that talks about benefit changes and reductions temporarily and contribution increases to cover that off. So it's a rational, clean way to be predictable into the future. And I think, again, we're looking for predictability, and that's what people want to see. So the question becomes what have we done here? Have we met the superintendent's directions to us? And I would say that we have. They want us to address the governance issue. Again, I think we've done that, so gridlock will be, for the most part, hopefully changed in the future. They've asked us to deal with intergenerational inequity, and we've done that with a fair and reasonable set of increases for both, and the rates will be stable over time. And the fund itself becomes sustainable over time. The current debt will be split between 60% for employers, 40% for employees over a 20-year period. So we begin anew. So the ball is now in the superintendent's court. We've done our work. It's a joint submission by all parties, 21 unions, representatives, 5 employer groups. This is an outstanding achievement by all measure. So we'll see what the superintendent does. There was some discussion, Mr. Chair, when we first heard that we were going to ask to prepare submissions and the superintendent would make a decision by the end of this year, that the quote was, "All hope is lost." And I would say to you that hope is here, that we have found a solution, found our way to move forward. I know members of council do feel very strongly about this and have worked very hard and paid attention with our team moving this forward. I strongly endorse this report before us. I strongly endorse the MOU. I strongly endorse the terms that have been freely negotiated between and among the parties. And I'd ask all members of council to support that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Councilor Murray.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I do rise in support of the report for us as it's laid out, and it came from a tremendous amount of work, so I do want to thank our administration as well as the employee side as well. But I want to thank our administration on a different note. In 2011, it was recommended to council that we have to find a solution. We have to make change. We have to do something. We need to have a line drawn in the sand. And that was the recommendation that came 3 years ago to a previous council. There are 4 of my new colleagues here that weren't even a part of that, and I congratulate you on being part of the fix. But this began in 2011 when the rates became so unsustainable that Revenue Canada had to be asked for exclusions to allow us to have those types of rates time and time again because the plan was broken. And it goes back before 2011, 2008, when the market corrected. It threw us a big wrench in the works. We can go all the way back to 2001. We all know what happened there, and the markets collapsed. We can go all the way back to Black Monday, October 19th, 1987. The plan has had challenges for a very long time, and finally, the right people got into place and gave us from our administration the advice to do something about it. And then the right people got in the room, and we started to have that conversation. So I really want to thank Mr. Benning and the rest of his team, as well as our administration team, for the work they did to put this together, because more importantly, this defined benefit plan today and the MOU that goes with it protects our employees, but it protects those who are retired, and it also protects the greater good of all of our citizens of Regina. They're the ones, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that are on the hook. They're the ones that pay for it. So it protects everyone. Absolutely, I appreciate the hard work and dedication and diligence that went into making this happen, and I am 100% in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bryce.
Thank you. This is the most important issue that I've had come in front of me in all my time on council. This issue impacts people's lives, those who have retired and those who are still working. This agreement does provide stability and resolves those issues that have been brought forward and outstanding for many years. The most important thing for me in this, as mentioned by others, is the part that talks about the retirees that are receiving pensions right now. The uncertainty that this has caused and the stress that's caused has come through in many emails, and when you're talking to people about this issue, it just comes through so blatantly because that uncertainty is so stressful for people. So I'm glad we were able to resolve those issues. I want to thank everybody involved, as well as the patients of those who are employees and those who have retired from the city. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Brace. Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo the sentiments of the mayor and other colleagues who have spoken of the leadership that this took on both sides to be able to bring this to a conclusion. And there are two things that stand out for me with this settlement. The first is that it happened at the bargaining table, and that's how the best agreements happen, is at the bargaining table. A third party didn't make the agreement or make the choices for us. The second thing is that we will no longer have this under a city bylaw. There'll be an independent governance structure that all the employers and the employees are part of, and there'll be a pension board that takes care of that. And I think that's a step forward to have that kind of a governance structure. And lastly, one of the things that we heard from you, and thank you for all of the people who've sent their concerns to us over this period of time, that it was really important that people who are on pension not lose that pension, because they've planned their whole retirement on what they would get from that pension. And so that was one of the things from the very beginning we were saying we wanted to see happen, and it's happened. So congratulations to both sides for the hard work you did. And it takes great leadership to be able to collaborate and meet in the middle the way these two groups have done. And so kudos to you for all your good work.
Thank you. Councillor Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too rise this evening to show my support for the negotiated MOU that's been put before us, and I too would like to congratulate both sides for bringing agreement. That when people ask me what it's like to be on council, I always express that it's probably the most exciting time in Regina's history to be involved right now with the growth and expansion and all the activity. And I also like to tell them I've never been more proud of city employees stepping up to the plate to meet all the workload challenges that are facing them, because this is my second round going through budgets too, and I know that virtually every program and service that's being offered is stressed to the limit. And I do know the hard work and dedication, and every once in a while I go home at night thinking, okay, what's going to derail all these good things that are happening in the program? And I think, as Councillor Bryce said, this is probably the most important file that we'll be dealing with, because literally every week when I come into the office here, I hear stories from managers saying the difficulty they're having in recruiting new young employees, and it usually relates back to the pension and pension contributions. And I've even had the opportunity to hear from several individuals that have left the City Hall employment, and again, pension is cited as one of their reasons for leaving. And I can only imagine sort of the stress and the day-to-day management and in-scope relationships with a dark cloud like this kind of hanging over the organization. And similarly, I'm just entering the retirement years myself, so I certainly respect and understand the fears and angst and emotional turmoil that the retirees must be going through. That every day they're trying to look and see how they can manage their next 20, 30 years, whatever, and prices seem to be going up everywhere. So I'm just so pleased to think, because as I've mentioned earlier, if there's one thing that could really derail the prosperity that the city is having right now and cause great chaos, I think would be this particular file. And again, kudos to everyone that's brought an agreement, because I do believe it's fair. As many have mentioned, it's kind of, I think, responded to the issues of new employees, existing employees, retirees, superintendent's concern, and I think that, and importantly to the taxpayer. So I think we've come together with a very, very reasonable and fair proposal, and I'm very pleased to put my support behind it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I too rise in support of the motion. First, like to say thanks to all those involved in the bargaining process. No doubt any bargaining process is tough, But this isn't just coming up with a new deal. This was actually fixing a problem. So I'd say this is especially a challenging process, and kudos to those directly involved for making it work. Definitely my concern through this whole process is that the fix is both fair and real, and I think this deal hits on both those points. I think it's also important for us to remember through all this that the pension plan does belong to employees. When employees, it's our job to be good steward and stewardesses of the plan, but when people sign on to work at the city, they're not only signing on for their wage, they're signing on for their wage and a host of benefits, which include a matching contribution from the city. So that's why it's so important that this deal has come from the bargaining table and hasn't been imposed in any way. So I'm very grateful for that. I do have one quick question. The last couple weeks, or last few months, I should say, have been a crash course for me in how pensions work. The situation we've been dealing with right now is a deficit. As I understand it, provincial regulation is there to make sure that the pension fund stays within certain bounds, which means a lower limit but also an upper limit. It could happen someday that we're in a surplus situation. I don't. It doesn't seem that that'll be the case anytime soon, but it has happened in the past. So I'm just wondering if someone from administration can relate the mechanism that we're proposing to put in place to deal with the deficit as it relates to the same mechanism to deal with the surplus, should that ever be the case.
Mr. Davies?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll provide a high-level response if Councillor Fraser is looking for more detail than either Curtis Smith or Mr. Weary could respond. The general response is this, that there are mechanisms, language proposed in the principles that would provide in the future when the pension is performing in the positive, and there will be, as Mr. Benning indicated, more detail behind that. At certain thresholds, there will be an opportunity for the sponsor board to look at reinstating benefits or changing benefits as may be the case.
Okay. Thanks for that. I think it's important to keep this in mind that this fix, I see it as real, fair, and sustainable. Again, today's problems are today's problems, but we're also setting up a proposal that will have the right tools to deal with future problems too. Let's hope that someday that's a surplus. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
This is an agreement which was fashioned with great skill by Mr. Benning and his groups and by the city administrators who worked on the negotiating team. And what they've come up with is an agreement that speaks in a loud and a clear voice. As has been noted by this council, it speaks in a loud and clear voice to our retirees whose contribution we value so highly. It says to them, all of your benefits are protected. It speaks in a loud and clear voice to our current employees, the people that we trust to work in this city and to make this city work. It says to them, your benefits earned to date are protected and your contribution rates will be reasonable going forward into the future, and you can be secure in knowing that your pension will be secure into the future. And it speaks in a loud and clear voice to the taxpayers of the citizens of Regina. It says to them that the burden which you carry will be reasonable and fair, will be the kind of burden that you would want to carry to make sure that our employees are well looked after. But I think that this agreement speaks in a loud and clear voice in another sense. Pension issues are issues which have bedeviled cities across this continent. In Canada and in the United States, cities have wrestled and are wrestling with pension issues. Some of those cities have gone bankrupt. And what we have here, thanks to the good work of the negotiating teams, what we have here is proof that agreements can be reached in good faith. And what we have here is an agreement which speaks in a clear voice to all those who are thinking about investing in Regina. It says to them, they have a city that works. It speaks in a clear voice to all of those who want to come and work in Regina, to those families that live in Regina. It says to them that they can work in this city and for this city and have a fair and secure retirement. And it speaks as well to people who want to retire and live in Regina. It says If you've worked for this city, you can have a comfortable retirement here. So I think what we have tonight is an agreement which speaks in a loud and clear voice, which gives an example, not just to Regina and its citizens, but to the whole continent, and it says this is a very fine place, thanks to the good people and the good work as demonstrated by the negotiating teams on both sides. It says this is a good place to be. I congratulate those who fashioned this, and I support it with enthusiasm.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Findera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I definitely support this. I've always thought about looking after our employees, and I wasn't looking forward to the other side of things, because this is a very hot chair, and the decisions are always tough. And so I'm very happy that it was negotiated, and both sides, everyone is happy what's happening here. So right now, to me, today is a very good day. It's a win-win situation, very positive, moving forward. And I would say congratulations to both sides, because the other side of this whole thing would have been not very good. So it was troubling me the whole way. And I said sometimes to myself, I don't know if it was fair for me to sit here and to make that decision. It's very tough. So I say thank you to everyone that made it very easy on me tonight. So again, congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's vote.
Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks. I have a question I'll begin with, and I asked Mr. Benning this question. I asked our staff if I could about communications, please. Is there a plan, or what do they see happening after the next meeting occurs, please?
Mr. Davies.
Mr. Chairman, through you, it's a bit of a work in progress at this stage, but we have used a number of channels on a regular basis throughout the process to keep stakeholders, including our employees, apprised. We had not had the chance to hear Mr. Benning's offer earlier of working together on a town hall meeting. I think that would be something for us to consider, but we will be using multiple channels to inform stakeholders of the status, both after tonight's meeting, but also as the superintendent is contemplating his decision as well.
Thanks very much. So if I could just pick up on that notion, please. So when I stand and speak at council, I sometimes turn to my colleagues and try and convince them of something. I'm not doing that tonight. I'm strictly going to look all of you in the eye and speak to you about what I think your responsibility is as well. I want to begin with Mr. Benning and his team, which I do not know the names. I hope that Mr. Benning will go back to his meeting and start by saying, when he sees them on Wednesday night, about council endorsed it. That's what I've heard. So we'll wait for the vote, but endorsed it, but also showed respect and notion for the people that were negotiating. These are our employees that were negotiating, and we wanted to make sure it got done. And to all of you, to each of you, I ask that you share that notion with them, if you wouldn't mind. To all of you who are here, you have a vested interest in the decision here. I understand that clearly, and probably some of you were people who sent us emails and so on. It was a difficult situation, as you've heard from other members of council, that we really couldn't respond because negotiations were on. So now I ask you to do something. You have heard loud and clear how council feels, and you will see loud and clear how council will vote in the next while. I ask each of you to go to your friends and your colleagues and share that comment and share those sentiments so that you understand and they understand how this played out. And I also want you to make sure that you understand that both sides came together, and that is how this always was hoped to be on our part. Clearly, as has been said here before, we wanted to make sure that those who are retired just kept on retiring and didn't have to worry. So please, go enjoy your life, and we don't have to talk about pension anymore. And I mean that. I want you to understand, for us who walk the hallways of City Hall each day, we have to face an awful lot of staff. And we want to make sure that they are in a safe, secure place that they also can work. But we also need to, and I ask both parties this, we also need to attract new people. The amount of money that they put toward a pension has to be at a point whereby it makes sense to them. We need to, no fooling, some more people are going to be retiring in the next while, and we need to make sure that we get more people. So those are key factors. I say the word stability, and I say the word long-term. I really don't wish to talk about pensions on the floor of council. So therefore, I believe that the governance that is proposed here, and I hope that goes into effect, is absolutely the right way to do it. There are groups of people out there who should look after this. I want to pay a compliment to Mr. Hopkins, who I didn't know was coming until a little while ago. It is rare, it is exceptionally rare in these circumstances, pensions or otherwise, where the Chamber of Commerce comes forward and says what he had to say. I think that's deserving of comment and respect. That is not the norm. I am very, very proud of our staff. Tried to talk to some of them before we got started here. I am proud of them because they put their heart and soul into this to make sure that we would be in this place. The very best thing that would come out of this for me is that we don't talk about pensions anymore because it's just looked after. That's all we all want. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. Mayor, if you'd like to come back for a minute.
Councilor Flagel.
Thank you. Everybody's pretty much said everything, but there's a couple of things that I want to just thank, and it's about the staff and Kirby and his team. But to keep it attractive for employees who want to stay here and for the new employees that want to come here, that was a key, I think, in any organization to say, why do I want to come work for the City of Regina? It's a great place to work, but now we have filled that but. So that's a good thing. I like that the contribution rates have gone below the 22% total, because that was where they were years ago, and that was a hardship. So we've changed that. The one other big important thing is that this has showed the residents of the City of Regina that council does care, council listens, management listens, staff listen, union leaders listen, everybody listens to what's going on. There are 7,000 people involved, but this is a citywide topic and a discussion that's been over us for years. So that, again, I'd like to thank. I also want to thank the residents that had phoned me or stopped me on the street, and the respect that they had. They were very respectful in their asks, their talking, and that was a nice change from some of the other things that are said, because council are always the bad people. This time, I don't think we're the bad people. We never are the bad people. We're just the messengers sometimes. Also, this fix has been great. But also, I just want to mention, I know tonight Councillor Hinks isn't here, but I know he'd want to echo my words, probably not as eloquently as I say them, but, you know, that's how he is. But he has a lot of friends. And he used to be a city worker back in the 40s, I think, wasn't it? No, maybe 70s. No, maybe 70s. Sorry. But I joke. But he's not here tonight. But I know he would want to echo everybody's sentiments and thoughts and everything. So let's go with the vote. And I'm 100% in favor. And thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Councilor Flagel. I have just a quick comment to make in closing the debate. It will be a unanimous vote in favor of this. I want to speak briefly on the issue of leadership in our growing community. That this is why this is so important tonight. That never have we seen the growth and prosperity of our city, the challenges to make decisions, the challenges for growth, and the challenges to accommodate those who helped build our city. So I want to reiterate the importance of this vote. Councillor Bryce mentioned this being one of the most important issue on her plate. I'd echo that as being certainly very near the top for me as being one of the most important ones. Lastly, for those in the audience who sent us emails, we heard you. We talked about that a lot, what that means. And never did we waver, did any side waver, on the need to protect those who built our city. I'll call the vote.
Could I ask for a procedure? Can I have a recorded vote on this?
Recorded vote's been requested. I think we'll get it there either way, Councillor O'Donnell, but they'll do a recorded vote. We show all hands, it'll be that way. Sure. Yes. Mr. Clerk, will you do the roll call, please?
So with council's indulgence, I will just go around the table and we'll finish with the mayor. So, fine. Councillor Findura. Councillor Fraser. Councillor Flagel. Yes. Councillor O'Donnell. Yes. Councillor Murray. I vote in favor. Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Young.
Yes.
Councillor Burnett. Yes. Councillor Bryce.
Yes.
Mayor Fougere.
I vote yes. The vote is unanimous. Our work is done here, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move adjournment.
Seconder, please. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.